I'm an alcoholic. My name's Kenneth Jackson, and hi everybody. I'm glad to be here tonight. It's always a pleasure to come down here. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and we were talking about what we're having to go through right now to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, to be there for that new person that walks in the room. And the thought came to me after I got off the phone with him. AA's never been through anything like this before. We are part of history. We are the stewards right now of this program, and it's our responsibility to take care of it the best way we can. And you new people, count your blessings that the old people are here. Count your blessings. The old timers, oh God, they're the reason I'm here today. I grew up in a real small town, not far from where I live now. The only reason I want to talk about this a little bit is because of the impact that the lifestyle had on me. My dad was an alcoholic, and he was a bad alcoholic. He was vicious. He was drunk. He had a lot to overcome. And my mother, I always tell folks I come from a mixed marriage. My father was an alcoholic, and my mother was a Pentecostal holiness. And that is one tough combination to have under the same roof. By the time I was a teenager, my father and I had gone our separate ways. He quit drinking, and he joined Mama on that Pentecostal holiness stuff, and he was meaner after that than he was when he was drinking. And he asked me to leave home at the age of 15 years old, and I accommodated him. And I promised my mother that I would finish high school. And I lived in a little room over at a drugstore in the little town I grew up in. And I guess if I've got any kind of early claim to fame, I was part of a state basketball championship. Well, we went to the championships 2 years in a row. We won it the last year. But the year that I made the all-state basketball team, I had to go to an awards banquet up in Durham at Duke University, and I didn't even drive. I was a junior in high school, and I didn't have a driver's license. And a friend of mine agreed to take me up there for the banquet. Now, I was taking care of myself. All of my needs were met by me. And so therefore I had a job working in a welding shop after school, and I swept the post office every morning before I went to school. And on Saturday I delivered groceries for a local grocery store. And I didn't have a lot of money. Didn't have a lot of nice clothes. And the night that I was supposed to go to Durham, a buddy of mine was going to take me up there. And the closer we got to Durham, the more nervous I got. And finally I told him, look, I can't do this. I'm not going to embarrass myself or anybody else. Let's just go back to Angela. And he said, oh, you're going to be all right. And he kept on. He said, look, reach under that seat there and take that bag out and take a little sip of that. I never drank anything in my life to that point in time. And I reached under that seat. I pulled it out. I didn't know what it was. I twisted the lid off of it. I took me a big old pull on it. I've always had problems with portions. I never could get that right. Well, I like to choke to death on that stuff. It was great vodka. And I spit it out all over me and all over his car and everything else. And he's up there, boy. He's up. Just take it slow. Just take you a couple of sips. You're going to be all right. By the time I got to Durham, I was all right. And now you see, I wasn't as heavy as I am now back then, but I was the same height. And Bobby Ray was about 5'10", and he weighed 135 pounds. And I had grape vodka all down the front of my shirt. So Bobby Ray and I changed shirts, and I couldn't even get the thing buttoned all the way. I was worried about being embarrassed, and it all went away. About half a pint of vodka, grape vodka, changed my life forever. What I learned that night, I don't care what I had to do. If there was fear or anxiety involved or regret or whatever negative emotion that I might have, all I had to do was take a drink and that negative emotion would go away. I could complete the task in front of me. Whether it was dating a girl, going to ask for a job, going to a funeral, a wedding, it didn't make any difference what it was. I took a drink. I took a drink to learn how to dance, all in the same night. I didn't do real good with the dancing, but I didn't give a damn. That's the way that was. So I went on, I graduated from high school, and I started drinking heavily in high school. Every occasion I got the opportunity, I did. 5 days before I graduated from high school, I got expelled for being drunk at school, but there was a whole bunch of us that got kicked out at the same time. I had to get my mother to come down there to talk to that principal to get me back in so I could walk across that stage. And they didn't give me the diploma that night. I had some community service I had to do to get that. Got out of high school and I got a scholarship down at Campbell College. And I was there about 6 weeks and decided that was not the life for me, so I joined the Navy. As you could probably already figured out, I don't hang real good at anything. And the Navy was no different. Within a year, I was up for court-martial. I got the opportunity to resign rather than be court-martialed, and I took it. I got a general discharge from the Navy and went on doing what I was doing. Wild, absolutely no sense of responsibility whatsoever. Whatever made me feel good was what I did. My behavior began to get me into some difficulties with local authorities, and I came back to part of the country where I was from when I got out of Long Beach. And my life was, doing what I got to do tonight and paying for it tomorrow. And that's the way it went. It was a constant, continuous thing. I don't know, I don't have any idea when I started having to drink. Alcohol was my friend for a long, long time. Alcohol absolutely propped me up. You ever hear somebody say, well, I got your back? Alcohol had my back. If I had a drink, I didn't need anything or anybody else. I got in so much trouble with the local authorities that I was in court in front of a judge that I had been in front of several times, and he stopped right in the middle of the case and said, "Look, I know you've had some bad luck, so here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to let you out of here tonight. You don't have to pay nothing. You ever come back in my courtroom again, I'll put you where I can get my hands on you anytime I want from now on." And I believe Judge Winwood when he said that. So I left the courtroom the next day, the next morning, tried to go to work, and when I got to work, my boss said he didn't need me anymore. And so I went by to see my girlfriend, and she said, until you get control of your life, I don't think I need to see you anymore. And that's the way it was going. And so I got me a fifth of liquor and went over to this little drive-in restaurant. And I sat there drinking liquor, and I took the horn. The little girl bring me a chaser out, and that went on into the night. And then I got out of the car. I don't remember why. I think I was going to the bathroom, and I was drunk. And somebody said something to me, I didn't know him, so I delivered that rest of that bit of liquor upside his head, and I went back to jail that night. And I was able to make bond, and I believed everything that Judge Wimber had told me. So I did what I thought was a logical thing to do. I left. I went to Florida. I had relatives down there. I wasn't there long before my cousin, my relative, came to me and he said, "How long did it take you to get down here?" It's about 10 hours. He said, "How long do you think it's going to take the Wake County Sheriff to get down here?" And I got the message. His wife had enough of him hanging with me and not doing what he was supposed to do as a husband and a father. So I left, and I went to California. I had relatives out there. And that's where I learned my profession. I had an uncle that was an over-the-road truck driver, and he told me to come on and go with him. He'd teach me how to drive a truck. I'd work so hard I wouldn't have time to get in trouble. And so I took that job, and it was going along pretty good, but there is a saying that absence makes the heart grow fonder. And this little gal that I was seeing before I went to Florida and California, I wasn't so bad after all, after she'd been away from me for a while. And we were commuting back and forth, and so she told me if I'd come to North Carolina and get her, she'd go with me to California. So I did that, and on the way out there, we stopped in Reno, Nevada, and got married. And turning point in my life, a bunch of turning points, but 9 months and 3 weeks later, we were blessed with the prettiest baby boy that I have ever laid my eyes on. I thought I'd had an emotional awakening the first time I drank liquor. But when I held that little fella in my hands, he weighed 7 pounds and 14 ounces, 21 inches long. Prettiest baby. And all of everything that I want, and all of everything that I wanted to be, all of it was jumbled up right there together, and I was holding it in my hands. And I swore, I will never treat you the way my father treated me. And I wish I could tell you I was able to keep that oath, but I didn't. I couldn't. Went to work. I was doing pretty good with my drinking. The only time I drank was when I'd come home and I'd have a few days off, and everything was a party while I was home, and then I'd be back on the road and gone again. And we had another child. We had a little girl, and my life was controllable, manageable. My drinking was manageable. And my wife asked me, why can't we find work around here for you, and where you can be home with me and the kids? And so I quit the road. I quit my uncle, and I had bought my own truck by then, and I was working under his authority. And I quit, and I just started hauling hay there in the valley where I lived, and local work, and I was doing okay. And he came to see me, another turning point. He came to see me. He'd had an accident and hurt his back. He couldn't hardly walk, and he was getting in financial trouble. And he asked me, he said, "Will you take my truck and run it till I can get back on my feet? And I need some help." And I said, "Of course," because he was there for me when I got to California. And I don't know what happened. Like I said, it was a turning point. But I never could go back. I started. Now I don't know how to introduce this into this talk, but I'm pure alcoholic. I don't have any addiction to anything. Maybe that little gal over there, but other than that, I'm not addicted to anything but alcohol. But there's things that are available for truck drivers. They call amphetamines. Now, if you take them things and you don't drive a truck, you might have an addiction problem. But if you're driving that truck, it's okay. It's part of the job. I got off on that, and that was it was pills to get up and go, and booze to get down and get off. Pills to get up and go, and booze to get down and get off. And when he got ready to come back on the road and get back on doing his job, I had no desire to stay home. I went on doing what I was doing. A short time later, my wife came to me and she said, if you're going to stay out there on the road like this, I want to move back to North Carolina where our kids can grow up with our families. I said, okay. So I moved about 100 miles from Raleigh, 120 miles from Raleigh. I didn't want to take no chance of bumping into Judge Windmer. But life was going on pretty good. Kids got in school. I came home when I'd been out on the road one trip, and I came home and she said, kids are in school, I'm going to go back to, they got a Davidson County Community College out here, I'm going to go take some accounting courses. I said, well, that's good, that's fine. So she goes out there, and the first thing they taught her was that she didn't need me, that people didn't live the way we were living based on how I was living and what I was subjecting my family to. And it just got worse and worse and worse till finally I came home one day and there was a bunch of stuff out on the porch and the doors were locked and my keys didn't fit the door, and it was just one of those what the hell's going on moments. And so we ended up in court, divorce court, and boy, I blew it in there. I should have known when I went in there, and that judge said, well, let's see what this fellow's done to my little girl. He goes on and on and on, and finally when he gets down to me, he tells me to stand up, and he says, let me make sure I understand this. And he started about some things I'd acquired. You have a motorcycle, yeah. You got a Corvette, yeah. You got a pickup truck, yeah. You got a bass boat, yeah, all that. He said, I've been on the bench for 30 years and I can't afford but one car. Well, Your Honor, they got truck driving jobs open every day. That was the wrong thing to say. It made a lasting impression on that man. And when he started divvying up stuff, it all went in one pile, and it wasn't my pile. And it was really getting bad. And then I really went into a tailspin. Rarely was I sober. Rarely was there a day where I was drinking. And I want to tell you something. Wake up in a rest area, and you're in the sleeper of your truck, and maybe you expel something from your body on you, or maybe not. But you're aware that you're in that truck, but you don't know where you're at. You've got no idea where you're at. And you're scared to get out, because if you walk around that truck and you see something bent, something scraped, different color paint on it somewhere, you don't know what you've done. Just terror. It's terror. So you get behind the wheel and you start driving, and you look for an interstate sign and a mile marker so you can figure out where you're at. And then you start digging for paperwork so you can make your delivery or your pickup, whichever one it is you're trying to do. That's the way my life was going. Go just as long, just as hard as I could, and then I'd get just as drunk as I could get until I had to do it again. Now, here's kind of the way I did things. I told my wife, I want to see the kids on Saturday. She'd say, fine, they'll be ready. And I'd get there on Saturday. A month, 6 weeks later, not the Saturday that we had just talked about, but when I could get there, when I would get there, when I was able to get there. And one Saturday, I showed up, and it was not the Saturday I was supposed to be there. And there was a new car sitting out, a newer model car sitting out on the curb right in front of my house. Well, it wasn't my house, it was her house now. It used to be my house. And I walked up on the door, and I didn't ring the doorbell. It was my house. I walked in. There was a guy sitting in my chair. Used to be my chair. It's his chair now. Her chair. But he got up when I went in, and I told her to get the kids ready. I'm ready to go. And she said, we're going to see the Escapades. We've already got tickets. I said, you can see the Escapades anytime. I don't know when I'll be home again. And that guy, he all he did was stand up. That's really all he did. And all the self-loathing, the hate, the anger, the sense of loss, the low self-esteem, that's what it was, took over. And I hurt that man real bad. And my kids saw me do that. They saw the violence in me, and I never knew I was a violent person. But anyway, I got 2 to 5 out of that. And I only had to pull 6 months and a little over 2 weeks, 15 days. And I got released through the help of a friend who was a Superior Court judge. And one of the terms that I had to face was that I not go back in Davidson County. And I got out of Gatesville, and before the sun went down, I was in Lexington, North Carolina, and I terrorized that woman into giving me those kids. And I left, and I took them to Raleigh, where my parents lived. And see, by now, my dad and I were on the same level. He quit drinking, and right after he ran me off, he started drinking again. And he was full blown, and I was too. And we were buddies. I went to see him one Sunday, and we were going to, they had started selling beer on Sunday then. We were going down to get a 6-pack of beer. And the next thing I know, it's dark, and we're sitting at a stoplight. I'm asleep, and there's somebody beating on the window. And I look over, and I wake my daddy up. He's asleep too, sitting there at the stoplight. And I roll down the window, and he says, give me $3 worth of regulars. I said, Daddy, that's a cop. Well, we had took my mama's little Chihuahua dog with us when we went to get that 6-pack of beer. And I think it was 2 or 3 days later, I don't know. But we went to jail, both of us. And Mama come down there and got the dog and left us. And that's where my life was at. Within 6 months, my dad had quit drinking. He went to ATC in Raleigh. Next thing I know, he's in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I know that he's sorrier than I am, so somebody done sold him something. And I keep going downhill and downhill. My mother's so afraid that I'm going to get him to drinking again. And I'm glad I got to make amends for what I'm about to tell you. I used to go over there, get the liquor, get 2 glasses, pour 2 shots, and push one to him. I was trying to get him to drink with me. I couldn't figure out why he wouldn't drink with me. But he never took that drink. He never took it. And I was sober before he passed away, and I got to make amends for that. Holidays were coming up. My mother caught me one day over at my brother's house, and she called me outside. She said, look, if you got to be drinking, Christmas don't come. We can't handle this anymore. Just don't come. I didn't know how not to drink. I'm chronic. You wake up, you drink, you throw up, you drink, and you keep doing that until you can get it to stay down. And then the shakes and the headaches and fear and all the guilt and remorse starts to go away because you're half drunk again. And that's the way my life was. I broke into my dad's shop shortly after that, stole his tools. He had a plumbing business. I stole his tools, took them to the pawn shop, started my last drunk. Let me back up just a little bit. It got so bad that my family would have me committed. I was in Butner, ARC in Butner. I ended up in Dorothy Dick's deal was my own doing. I got up on top of a house. They lived on South Street. You could see Dorothy Dick's over here in Central Prison over here, and the cars running down Western Boulevard. And I started shooting at cars. I don't know why. I told them that I was having a flashback from Vietnam, and I ain't never been nowhere near it. But that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. I don't know why they didn't shoot me, but they took me to the Sproul building over at Dorothy Dick's, and I learned how to live electrically over there. That was something else. I don't know if any of you people has ever been confined in a place like that, but my experience, my memories of those places was that they would use some kind of drugs to get me under control. And then they would start taking you off of it a little bit at a time, but keep you to where they could control you. And I escaped from Butner. I figured out what it was doing to me. I thought I'd figured it out. And I kept watching. And these guys would go outside and smoke near a tennis court. And they'd come back in and do their job. Well, I waited, and I seen they didn't never lock that door. And I waited till I'm over there making sure I can move good. And they left and went somewhere, and I went out the door. And I'm out there hitchhiking from Butner to Raleigh. I got that hospital gown on that ties in the back. This black lady stopped and picked me up, and she took me all the way to Raleigh. I told her if she'd take me to Raleigh, I'd give $100. I hadn't seen $100, but she took me to Raleigh, and the sheriff was sitting at my mama's house when I got there. They took me right back to Butner. But that's where my life was. I couldn't control where I went, what I did, or who I did it with. If I take a drink, my life was under somebody else or something else's control. I could not drink. I remember one time that this doctor that my mother knew told her, I can stop that boy from drinking. And he put me on these little yellow capsules called Valium. And I went around pretty good there for a while. I didn't drink nothing. I'd eat them pills every day, but I didn't drink nothing. Then a buddy of mine came to town, and we went down to get a beer, and that's when I ended up on top of the house on South Street shooting the cars on Western Boulevard. That's what liquor and Valium did to me. But I got sober. I got dry. I never did get sober. I got dry, and that's when I broke into my dad's shop and stole his tools. And I went out to a poker house, and I broke the game. I had a paper sack full of money, and I went home, and I looked around, and the thought occurred to me, is this all there is? Is this what I got to look forward to for the rest of my life? I reached in my boot and I pulled out that 38 and I cocked it and stuck it in my mouth. And that pawn ticket was laying there on the bed in front of me. And I thought, Daddy's asleep. This is meeting night. He got home, he's in bed. I'll call Mama, tell her where that pawn ticket is, his money's here, and get his tools back. I picked up the phone and I called my mother, but she didn't answer the phone. He did. He said, "What's wrong, son? Where you at? Are you in the hospital? You need me to get you out of jail? What's wrong?" And I don't know where the words came from. The first time in my life I said, "Daddy, I've tried everything. I can't stop drinking." He said, "No, you haven't, son. You haven't tried Alcoholics Anonymous." "Okay, what's that?" "Well, you won't make it. If you try to go cold turkey, you need to go to this place." Told me where it was. Then I had no problem remembering. He said it was on Falstaff Road. So I went over there, and it was late in the night, early morning night. I don't know exactly. I'm beating on the door. This little old gal's sitting behind a phone reception area, and she's looking at me. She's dialing that phone. And in a few minutes, there was enough cop come there to protect the Pope, the priest, anybody. But they took my gun and they took that sack full of money. But they let me stay there. And I went in and they had me sitting in this room and said they'd be evaluating me shortly. And I had been in the convulsions before. I knew what it was. And that's what happened to me. I went into convulsions and they sent me over to the local hospital. And I was over there in the IC unit for quite a while, blood transfusions, and I was in a mess. I was in trouble. Every night, 10 minutes to 11, this nurse who had been in the emergency room, she came into that room every single night. She said, "Now, honey, when you get out of here, you go back over there where you were at, and people can help you." I had to go back over there when I got out. That's where my truck was sitting parked. So I went back over there, and I knocked on the door, and they let me in. And I told them what I was there for. I said I was here and I got sick, and I was told that you folks could help me do something about my drinking. And this gal said, "Well, you don't need to be here. You're sober. We got this outstanding IOP program that can help you, but you don't need to be confined." I don't have the vocabulary to explain the terror that went through me trying to figure out what's going to happen to me if I leave. What's going to happen? And she said, "You can't stay here. You got to go." So I went out and I found my old pickup and I sat down in it. I started scrambling around and I finally found a bottle behind the seat. It had about that much in the bottom of a fifth. And I turned it up and knocked it down. I went back in that building, I found that gal and I blew in her face. I said, "Will you take me now?" Took 5 days in detox. That's how the shape my liver was in. I weighed 164 pounds. I had a 42-inch waist. And I was yellow as a buttercup. I was dying of cirrhosis of the liver. And they took me. I was taken out, after I got out of the detox, I was taken out in the meetings. You go into this general area and they do a reading. In those days, they read from a 24-hour book. You don't see it much anymore. But that book slammed full of these and thous. And I don't need that. So one morning they started in with that, and I yelled up something very profane and said, "If that's all you got, I'm in the wrong blah blah place." Big old black guy, bigger than I am now, pointed his finger at me and said, "You sit down, shut up, and listen." I'm looking for something to hit him with. There's a lamp. I grabbed this lamp, I'm going to get him. He started laughing at me. He said, "Who you think you're going to hit with that lamp? You can't even stand up." They come in and try to throw me out for my conduct. He wouldn't let them know, "You're not going to do this. We can't help him out there. I'll control him." And Matt came into my room every morning First morning he came in over the big book. He said, start in the 5th chapter. And he left. He left. I thought, what's the use of starting in the middle of a book? It can't be worth a damn. I threw it out the window. Next morning that book was in there. There's Matt. Well, we're going to try this a little bit different. We're going to start in the doctor's opinion. That's where we stayed the rest of the time that I was there. He asked me, did I have any physical allergies? I said, yes, I'm allergic to pineapple and poison ivy. And he asked me what happened, and I told him. He said, well, you don't drink pineapple juice then, do you? I said, hell, to kill me. He said, you don't roll around in poison ivy? I said, no. I have to take steroid shots when I even look at that stuff. He said, what happens to you when you drink? And he took every experience that I had told him about in my drinking career, and he plugged it into the doctor's opinion. The day I left there, Matt was standing by the door, and when I walked by, he grabbed me by the arm and he said, boy, let me tell you something. You say that you don't believe in God. We may not have a solution for you, but you're never going to drink again and not know what's going to happen to you. I said, if you got any brains at all, you get yourself to an AA meeting and you get there tonight. I left, got home. What else am I going to do? I ain't got nowhere else to go. So I go to an AA meeting. First one I ever went to on my own. The rest of them I'd been to while I was in that place. I'm going to cut it up all right. Every time I went, somebody took us. First guy that took us to one of those meetings to come over to pick us up, his name was Jack Daniels. Jack and I became good friends over the years later on, and up till he passed away. But that's taking me to an AA meeting. Your name's Jack Daniels. But that same meeting, I go in there with Jack. I sit down with my wristband on against the wall, and I look over at that table, and a little red-headed gal sitting there, and she says, we've been waiting for you. It was that nurse. That came in the room. And she was a dear friend for many years until she passed away. But you can be too sick. I was sick enough that I almost missed it. I almost missed the message. And just the little things. Matt Green, you ain't never going to drink again and not know what's going to happen to you. Carlene, you go to that meeting. Them folks over there, you go to that where they just got you from. Them folks can help you. And then when I show up at that meeting, there she is. We've been waiting for you. Well, that night I didn't go to Westminster. I went to Hayes Barton, an old group there in Raleigh. And I'm walking in, they got a door like here and one right there. Coffee pots down there. And I walk in this door and I look around, maybe 25 people in there, and they all got no hair or blue hair. Lord have mercy. So I decided, well, maybe I can find another meeting. I start out the door. This little old lady, she was 80 years old, 4'11". She cut me off at the pass. She got me in the door. She said, where are you going, honey? I said, well, I'll tell you the truth. I got to go find somebody I can identify with. She said, oh, we identify with you. You don't have to worry about that. We've all been where you are right now. She said, why don't you come in here and sit with me? And I'm walking up there, I'm thinking, this old woman's hitting on me. That's about what I had. So I go up there and I sit with her, and I don't understand anything that's going on. It's a discussion meeting. It's a closed step They're talking about the steps. I don't understand anything they're talking about. When the meeting's over, she grabbed me by the arm and she said, "Why don't you come back and sit with me on Friday night? I want you to come sit with me. Can you do that?" And so that started me sitting beside Mary Alice for a while. Then she stepped out of line. She said, "Do you thank God at night for your sobriety and ask him in the morning to help you stay sober?" I said, "Mary Alice, I don't believe in God." She said, "I didn't ask you if you believed in God. I asked you if you prayed." I said, "No, I don't pray. I don't believe in God." She said, "Well, would you consider it?" I said, "No, that would make me a hypocrite." She said, "Oh, my Lord, honey. If we can keep you sober, we'll deal with your hypocrisy later." So then she hit me. She said, "Do you love me?" Now, I've been sitting with this gal for 3 months, and she's just the finest little old lady you ever want to meet. And I said, "Well, if I know what love is, Mary Alice, I love you." She said, "I want you to do something for me tonight." I said, "Okay, what can I do for you?" She said, "When you get home, I want you to find a quiet place and say, 'Thank you for letting me stay sober today.' And in the morning, I want you to do the same thing and say, 'Will you please help me stay sober today?'" I said, "That sounds a whole lot like praying." She said, "Will you do it?" I didn't have any bargaining chips. I didn't have anything that I could make a deal with. Nothing. All I had was me, my fear and frustration. And all she had was her love and her trying. And I had nothing to deal with that. She had it all. I didn't have anything. So I told her I'd do it. And I will tell you folks exactly what I did. I went home that night. I backed up against the wall and I said, "I don't believe a word I'm saying. I'm doing this cause Mary Alice asked me to. Thank you for letting me stay sober today." And the next morning, I did the same thing. "Here's Mary Alice coming to you through me. Will you help me stay sober today?" And that's the way it went. That was my prayer. And I don't know when, I know this. Mary Alice died April of 1985. And I don't know when I quit praying for Mary Alice. If I could tell you when my spiritual awakening took place, I would. But I can't. That chapter in the back of the book on spiritual awakening, it was written for me. Every bit of contemporary investigation. You know, I went through the chapter to the agnostic and it just made me angry. God does not make terms too tough for those who seek him. Well, that's what this book's about. Help you find the power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. I couldn't do it. But that chapter in the back of the book, if you're new and you're struggling with spirituality, read that. See where you find yourself in it. That's what it took for me. I remember one specific thing that happened, and I don't know what it was other than one lady was passing another lady a note. "Dear to me, come by me," and I looked at the border of the thing. She had it folded over. It had a picture of Inky Bog the frog holding on to a rope, and it says, "When you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on." And I passed the thing on down, and it gets a couple of people down the road, and the thought come to me, other than that rope's tied to something. That's as close as I could get. I've been sober since, wait a minute. I haven't had a drink since April 1st, 1981. I want to get this in here right quick, make her uncomfortable. This little old gal come in about the same time I did. But she was in and out, and you'd see her, and sometimes you might even smell a little on her. But she disappeared. Didn't see her no more. And then when she came back, first time I saw her, she walked in the Hills group there in Raleigh, and it was like she was glowing. It was like, I know who that is, but she looks different. And I didn't speak to her for a couple of times, and later on I started talking to her around meetings, and then I'd find myself going to a meeting where I thought she might show up. I had 1.5 years and she had 6 months. Now all them old timers that sit at the back with their arms crossed and watch everything you do, leave her alone. Give her a chance to get sober. Just leave her alone. All them old biddies that couldn't mind their own business, stay away from him. You know he's crazy as hell. But we didn't listen. We didn't listen. Now, I wish I had time to tell you everything that has transpired. We got married October the 5th, 1985. I did everything. I got sober. I got a business. I became somebody. This old man that was trying to chair me there in sponsor me there in Raleigh. I don't know how many times I heard him say, "Boy, you know what pride is?" "Yeah, I know what it is." "I don't think you do. Pride's just like a tomato. You're ripe as you ever gonna be right before you fall off the vine. You're proud of you." It almost cost me everything near and dear to me. I had 2 or 3 pagers, and I was one of the first guys around Raleigh had a cell phone, one of them big old bags. I had to carry it with me everywhere I went. I was contracted through several federal agencies that required. I got a top secret security clearance, sure did. But my life had turned around, and thank God that one morning we were sitting in our dining room in the kitchen in our little home in Garner, and I was going on about something. She took my face in her hands, and she said, "Honey, if you had a 12-step call right now or a $5,000 business deal, which one would you take?" And my mind went to, hell, Hank can do that 12-step call, but I need to be the one to do this business deal. It woke me up, made me realize what was important in my life. And it took a while. We went on and ended up divorced, but the one thing that we did do, both of us, is we never pulled away from the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Never once pulled away. I don't care what went wrong, I got closer. I got closer to the people that I sponsored. I got closer to my sponsor. I took this thing seriously. This disease will kill me. I have seen it, other people die to tell me this disease will kill you. And I can't tell you what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I know I stayed in a drunk log a lot longer than I wanted to tonight. I wish I could talk about all the wonderful people that's been there for me in sobriety. God, I can't tell you. The life I have today is certainly not anything I ever imagined me having. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to sit down. 2 things. My prayer. My prayer tells my story. Father, thank you for letting me wake up this morning. Thank you for Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you for my willingness to pray and to seek. Thank you for being there before I knew you were there. Father, please guide my thinking today. Please help me treat people the way I want to be treated. And if it's your will, let me stay sober. That's how I start my day, every day. My wife and I read meditation books together, and then we pray the 3rd step prayer and the 7-step prayer together every day, every day. That's a long way from, I don't believe in God, Mary Alice, to my prayer this morning. Anybody can cut open an apple, tell you how many seeds is in it. Can't nobody tell you how many apples is in one seed. Thank you.